Welcome to this special edition of SportsBeat KC, the sports podcast of the Kansas City Star and KCUR. It's Wednesday, March 18th. We are on the eve of the NCAA men's basketball tournament, and the Kansas Jayhawks enter the big dance as the number 4 seed in the East region. Their leading scorer is freshman guard Darryn Peterson, who at times has lived up to his promise as a top recruit out of prep school and a player who could be the number 1 prospect in this summer's NBA draft. But it's been a bumpy road for Peterson and KU. He's missed stretches of games and time within games with a series of ailments. In some ways, Peterson hasn't lived up to the hype. An air of mystery has surrounded him all season, mostly because he rarely spoke publicly. However, beat writer Shreyas, Laddha, who covers KU for the Star, recently got to spend some time with Peterson and produced a revealing story about this star-crossed season, and he's here to talk about it. Hello, Shreyas.
Hey, Blair. How are you?
I'm good. So let's start with this. You interviewed Peterson last week at the Big 12 tournament about as extensively as anybody has this season. Tell me about your biggest takeaways about why he missed so much time this season.
Well, he talked about it openly on Friday, Saturday, really, where he said he had full body cramps. I think he had suffered not at the Louisville game, but in September, a week after KU's boot camp. And KU's boot camp, as you know, is just a bunch of conditioning, etc. He said that he had to go to the hospital because of it. And the most interesting part to me was not the detail with the hospital. Obviously, that's not great. But he said as much as he didn't want it to be, he was traumatized a little bit by the incident. It seemed like that was kind of a factor at different points this year with when he would kind of ask to come out of games. So we are seeing the repercussions of something that happened in September. And, the funny thing was I had known about it for a while, but something like that, you don't want to be wrong, right? With a health thing. I'd heard it from a few different sources. So it was interesting that he decided to open up, and of all places, the Big 12 tournament right before NCAA tournament. And I think what's been the season-long story became even bigger when he decided to do that.
Right. So the cramping, that's the reason he missed most of the games early. Am I right? I
think it was a hamstring strain initially. Like they missed a bunch of games mixed in with cramping. I think they're all kind of interconnected, to be honest.
Right. But he also had the ankle sprain, right? He missed
the game because of an ankle sprain. I think after he played through it against Colorado, then he missed the K-State game right after that. He also had the flu-like symptoms game that he missed against Arizona. So
right.
He missed a lot of games.
Right. And so as this was unfolding during the season, we started to think of it in terms of load management for a college player, but it turns out in your discussion, you discovered that really wasn't the case.
Yeah, it's been a constant thing from everybody with his camp that he isn't load managing. His high school coach said he wasn't doing it. He said he wasn't doing it. Self said he wasn't doing it throughout the season. The most interesting thing about the load management thing is there is some level and credence to him having done it in high school. He's an NBA scout told me, and the quote he gave was very funny to me. He was like, I'd wake up at 7 a.m. and I'd get to the gym at 8 a.m., California time, and Peterson would be in street clothes and he'd use a defense. I'd go to the EYBO event at 9, and at 10 p.m., DeBonce's playing in everything. He's not sitting. And I had multiple sources throughout the season tell me there's some credits to him missing events, him being not having to play every event out there. So it's a weird thing because I don't know if he was load managing at Kansas, but it seems like he definitely was load managing a little bit in high school.
So DeBonce, who you referred to as A.J. DeBonce, who ended up being a star player at BYU, and in the same course, Big 12 conference as Kansas. And it might turn out that the Big 12 will produce the top 2 players in the NBA draft this summer with DeBonce and Peterson. But complicating matters here is Darryn Peterson's a quiet person. He called himself a loner, didn't speak with reporters, to reporters much of the season. And then I thought this was interesting. He told you he thought he could have handled it better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was one of those things that I'd never seen him open up this much this year. I don't know if there's some level of comparability with me because I've written so much about him and maybe his camp and him have talked about me versus him just being an open locker room setting because he tended to kind of open up a little more with some other people as well. Uh, but he mentioned he was a loner to me a few times. Obviously, he called himself an antisocial loner back in, I want to say, mid-February or something, when he was asked about how he handles the media attention. And that kind of drove a lot of eyeballs from the basketball world. I was told there were scouts that called his camp to ask if he was doing okay. I had NBA scouts texting me, is he okay? One of them was making fun of that comment because he just could not believe he said that out loud. Uh, I think, and Peterson knows, and I think he probably would agree with this, is so much of this that has come out and that has been made such a big deal now would have been so much less if he was transparent and open about things, even in like January or December. But him opening up, I think, is a good thing. Obviously, selfishly, I'm happy about it. I've been chasing the same thing for 6 months, but I don't really understand the timing of it all. And to me, I don't really know what's going on behind the scenes because I can say this, Blair. There were people in his camp that wanted this feature to happen, and there were people in his camp who absolutely did not want this feature to happen. And the people in his camp were the professionals, and the ones who were not, but they were closer to Peterson.
Shreyas Laddha, KU beat writer for the Star, is our guest. Okay, so tell us what do you think this means for his NBA future? How has that changed maybe from the beginning of the year to now?
Well, I definitely think he went from a guy that was consensus number one to a guy that is probably going to be number two because he's still so good. And for NBA scouts, I think the way they look at it is they can look at it as a one-off year. As long as he passes the medical side of things, because everyone wants to know the medicals, I think a lot of them had their minds made up before this year even happened. The scouts that I talked to, three different scouts, with two of them being potential lottery teams, they two of them already had DeBonsa at number one before the season started. The other one had Peterson. Now all of them are DeBonsa first, Peterson second. A scout told me, whoever gets first and second, like beauty's in the eye of the beholder. So it depends on what they're looking for, maybe fit wise as well, and kind of where the teams are at in the window of contention. Like the Pacers, for example, what they need is completely different than a team like the Sacramento Kings, right? The Pacers are 1 year removed from coming off the NBA Finals. Sacramento Kings are a team that's perpetually searching for success and a successor to be the next face of the franchise, it feels like. So I think, for me, the most intriguing thing is like this guy who was this consensus, almost Teflon type prospect in one of the best draft class ever, according to a lot of best experts, is falling, but he's not falling as much as you think he's going to fall. Like at worst, I think anyone I've seen mocked him is at number three. And I think this is where kind of the disconnect happens between people in the draft media world and the NBA scouts, because the NBA scouts are following Peterson since 8th, ninth grade. All of them have their opinions. They know who he is. They know who his parents are. They know who his camp is. Versus draft Twitter, for example, loves Cameron Boozer. A lot of them say Cameron Boozer should be number one. But every single, NBA scout I've talked to, and I've talked to 5 or 6 different scouts, 5 or 6 different teams, every single one of them had Boozer at number 3, Peterson or DeBonsa at 1 or 2.
Well, before any of that happens, Kansas has the matter of playing in the NCAA tournament. For the Jayhawks, that starts Friday. They play Cal Baptist, the WAC champion, the number 13 seed. They play him in San Diego, only 100 miles or so from the Cal Baptist campus. But what do you anticipate from Peterson and KU, at least in this first game in San Diego?
Well, I think the interesting about Cal Baptist is they're a defensive-heavy team. They're much better defensively than offensively. I think Kansas should roll to an easy victory just because KU's offense isn't great, but their defense is elite. So when Cal Baptist is as bad as an offensive team as they have, I think Kansas shouldn't really be worried much at all. And I think this should be a nice game for Peterson to get right. Ideally, you see him score 20-plus on efficient shooting without having to play a ton of minutes probably to have him ready to potentially and most likely play St. John's in the next round. I expect Kansas to not really be threatened in this game. But obviously, as we've seen at this different points this season, expectations of what we think of KU basketball are not always met in reality.
Well, and this is a KU program that after winning the 2022 national championship hasn't gotten out of the first weekend of the NCAA tournament. So we'll have to see. Okay, well, Shreyas, Laddha will continue to cover this story and KU. Shreyas, thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me.